Hi, Pascal.
Hello, Pranshu.
Nice to see you.
Nice to see you too.
Yeah, I've been thinking of catching up with you for so long, but things are just going so challenging right now because policy is changing every week.
Is that
And
so?
yeah, it's becoming almost a lot of things are stuck because of lack of clarity today.
Really?
Yeah, I'll share in a separate call. I'll call you and discuss this part.
Hi, Sri Priya.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. And you?
Okay.
All well, all well.
Just ask people to join. Pascal, we'll wait for a couple of minutes before we start.
All right.
Hi, Karthik.
Hi,
Hi, hi,
Karthik.
Pranshu.
Hi,
Hi,
welcome.
Shripriya.
Hi.
Yeah, thank you.
So,
Hello,
Karthik, let
Dr.
me introduce you
Reddy.
to Pascal.
Yeah,
Pascal is the Director General for WEEE Forum. I have been talking about WEEE Forum with you many a times.
Yeah.
So, and Pascal, Karthik leads recycling operations at PAMP in India. PAMP is one of the largest gold refineries, headquartered in Switzerland. So he's now helping us with printed circuit boards.
Yeah.
Nice
Hi,
to meet you,
Pascal.
Karthik.
Yeah. Hi.
Hi, Manjri.
Hi, Manjri.
Hi, Pranshu. Hi, Priya.
Hi.
Hello, Pascal.
Hello, Manjri.
Hi, Karthik.
Hi, Manjri.
Hi,
We'll wait
Priyanka.
for-
Hi everyone.
Hi, Priyanka. Nice to see you here.
Yeah.
Thank you. Hi everyone. Good
Yeah.
afternoon.
Hi.
I think Dr. Reddy was also there.
Yeah, he's there, and even Mr. Gurav has joined from
Okay.
Maharashtra Pollution Control.
Okay. Hi, Dr. Reddy. Good
Hi,
afternoon.
namaskar. Namaskar.
Namaste.
So, Nandkumar, can you hear us? If you can just switch on your camera. Hello.
Yes, good afternoon, everybody. Myself is Nandkumar Gurav. I am
Good
Assistant
afternoon.
Secretary Technical from the Maharashtra Pollution Control Board.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
So I think, Pranshu, all of us are here. We can now begin. You're on mute.
I'll wait for 30 more seconds and then we start. Yeah, we also have good number of participants now, so let's see if it touches 65, 70. Okay, so let's start. Good. So a very, very warm welcome to all of you on the panel, and a very warm welcome to all the people who have joined in for this discussion and debate today. Today we are going to debate a very, very interesting topic, something which is of critical relevance in terms of how circularity-based solutions develop in India, and can EPR become a driving force for enabling circularity at a what I would like to call a population scale. So not something which is practiced here and there, but something which becomes, like the regular thing, something that we don't need to have a webinar on, something which is just like hygiene for all of us. To give you a broad overview of this session, this is the series 2 of this whole session. We do this annual series. The first series was done last financial year, and it covered 8 episodes. This is the second series, and today is the 4th episode of the series. Generally, we are hosting one session a month. Today, we are focusing on the EPR credit generation, which essentially, considering Pascal is here, which essentially translates to how is recovery happening? Are we recovering enough? And what India has done is made a dramatic change in the way we were regulating earlier. And we have brought in the idea of recovery, and we have linked everything to recovery instead of collection and recycling. So to give all the viewers a broad overview, the latest draft, not the draft, the version of the rules which has come, and the latest guidelines from CPCB essentially point out that EPR targets which have to be met by the brands can only be met if they are submitting proofs or they are buying what is being called as EPR credits from the market. And these EPR credits can only be generated by selling metals which are recovered from waste. So this is a very, very large differentiation in today's rule compared to any other rule globally. And it's a fairly drastic measure. Not everyone is of the very positive view that will it give us the desired results, but at least the intent is clear that the intent is towards recovery of metals. Intent is towards ensuring recovery, and systems which drive recovery are progressing at the country level. And in some way, it is an incentive towards driving that sort of recycling infrastructure at a country level. However, there are also challenges, because how do you link that these metals have truly been recovered from the products that they are to be recovered from? Do we really have the quality of recycling infrastructure at a country level which allows this level of recovery? Are we aiming too high too soon? What about, and there are risks of defocusing from the collection systems, which were just in early stages of being set up. So majority of the brands are of the view that why do we really need to have detailed collection systems? Now we can just go and buy credits from the market, but credits honestly can only be generated if collection systems exist. Otherwise, there is something fundamentally wrong about the system. So it's a whole range of things. And we have invited Pascal, who is the Director General at WEEE Forum, a center of excellence at a global level, which started its presence in Europe, but today has members across the world, almost all continents, Pascal, if I'm right, and is driving extensive deep thinking. I would really like to use the word deep thinking because this is what is required if we have to solve this sort of a complex problem. So Pascal and the team, I've been amazed at the kind of work which is happening. We have learned a lot. And both, it is both a learning platform, but it is also a sharing platform. A lot of our work in India is also helping shape up some of the other emerging markets work. So that's so what we wanted to hear from Pascal is essentially how has evolution on the recovery side happened? And can producers be even held liable for recovery? Because at the end of the day, a producer's job is to, in some way collect. That's what they have control on. Until unless they are recyclers on their own, they will always have limited ability to drive collection and recycling. So if that is the case, how do these things work? So that's the broad topic. Let me also share very strongly that this session is supported by LIFE, which is Indian government's program on lifestyle for environment. And the whole series is possible because of our sponsors, which are Apple, Dell Technologies, and Canon. So we are really excited about hosting this dialogue. And this is also very new because not all of us have answers. We are all struggling. We are all figuring out. But it will be an exciting journey. So that is one thing which I'm sure, it may have a lot of bumps. So Pascal, very warm welcome here on this panel. And, like I have shared, what we would like to hear from you is how has Europe in the last 15 years transitioned from developing mature collection systems to focusing on recovery of specific materials? And one more thing which I like to bring is we have also expanded the categories dramatically. So initially we were focused only on 16 categories. Now we have 106 categories, and things like small IT equipment, very small, like smartwatches, headphones, Bluetooth devices, IoT devices, they are all now under the system, including medical devices. I am aware of many projects that WEEE Forum have started, especially focused on some of these things. So how do we take this? And sorry, a small mistake. We also have Manjri. So the program is also sponsored by HP. Sorry, Manjri, I lost that thought. So HP Enterprise is also a sponsor of this program. So Pascal, we would really like to hear from you. How do you think this can evolve? There are a lot of roadblocks. We are all finding ourselves challenged in the space that we are. The space for PRO has almost died down because of lack of focus on collection. So what would you suggest? How should we think? Over to you, Pascal.
Okay, thank you very much, Pranshu, and thank you very much for your kind words, very nice introductory remarks. For those of you who are less familiar with the WEEE Forum, we were created in 2002, so 21 years ago. Last year we celebrated our 20th anniversary, and it coincided with the entry into force, or the adoption, let's say, of the first WEEE legislation, actually the first supranational WEEE legislation in the world based on EPR principles, extended producer responsibility. And so the principle itself had been designed, as you know very well, by Thomas Lindqvist and other people in the 1970s and 80s and 90s. And so it was based on these principles that they designed the WEEE legislation. And I think fundamentally, because also E stands for extended producer responsibility, not exclusive producer responsibility, as some people think it is. But fundamentally, EPR is about shifting responsibility from municipalities. It was the case in Europe. I don't know exactly how the situation is in India, but from municipalities upstream to the producers. And the rationale was very simple, that it's only producers, manufacturers, original equipment manufacturers that can design the products and can design out environmentally unfriendly components, or design them differently, eco-design them so that you have more eco-friendly products. That was the fundamental idea. And that's the first point. And secondly, it's also producers that are in a position by the setting up of producer responsibility organizations, such as the members of the WEEE Forum. They are actually in the eye of the web. So they are the spiders in the web, in the sense that they have contact with all the different actors in the market or of a jurisdiction. So they are the ones that have contact with the retailers. They do the consumer campaigns vis-a-vis the consumers. They have contacts with the enforcement agencies, with the policymakers, and so forth. So they are really the spiders in the web. And that's so these two things combined make for a successful program. It's actually, incidentally, your event coincides with a consultation in the European Union of the public around the evaluation of WEEE legislation. Because in view of a revision of the current legislation, the European Commission and consultants are asking us, how do you evaluate WEEE legislation? And so it coincides with this exercise that we are doing in the European Union. We are thinking about, okay, if you look back 20 years, what have we actually learned? And so what I'm just telling you, I think, is really a success story in that respect. So I think the value chain, the ecosystem, is one of the success story. So there, you can say that in 20 years' time, because you mentioned, Pranshu, in your introductory remarks, are we reaching too high too soon? And so forth. 20 years ago, there was not that much of an ecosystem either in many parts of Europe. Of course, the Swedes and the Belgians and the Dutch, they were quite advanced, but there were many parts of Europe that had no ecosystem. But I think we can say after 20 years, this is really in place. And to a large extent, and collection points, for example, are easily accessible across the board, let's say. Of course, there are exceptions, and it's convenient, it's accessible, and so forth. That's number one. That's the principle of extended producer responsibility and the success of creating an ecosystem and a value chain. Because at the end of the day, you need a value chain. You need to connect different dots. It's not just recyclers or just producers that can solve this equation. So the second principle of EPR legislation is to also lay down specific obligations and specific targets. For example, in the European Union legislation, you have recycling and recovery targets. And we drill down to the category level. You mentioned 106 categories. In the European Union, in the directive, we have 10 categories. And so, for example, we would say that for large household appliances, category 1, you have recycling rates of 85, if I'm not mistaken, and recovery rate of 80%. So this is very specific, and so the whole ecosystem has to work towards these rates. And of course, it's the recyclers that recycle the products, the end-of-life products, but all this is tiered and managed by the producer responsibility organizations. And I think this as well has worked. I mean, we have raised the bar, the environmental bar in Europe. I think this is undeniably true. And compared to 20 years ago, there was little infrastructure. The infrastructure that was in place was not meeting the recycling rates the recycling targets that we have now. And there has been huge progress in that respect. The third point, let's say, component of EPR legislation is that you need to have the actors around the table. And not all member states of the European Union are implementing this idea, but basically, it means that you have whoever has access to e-waste should be sitting around a table and should have obligations and responsibilities. This is really a fundamental principle. The directive is relatively clear in that respect, but we believe that there is a scope for improvement because, for example, there are still in Europe 45% of e-waste is unaccounted for, and so it's not reported formally. Unaccounted for, and that's despite 20 years of EPR legislation. I don't know the situation in India, but definitely that's one of, let's say, the shortcomings of the directive and the implementation. And so what we have done in the WEEE forum is, as I said earlier, is an analysis of the strengths and weaknesses of legislation after 20 years. I already mentioned as a strength, as a success, the ecosystem. We have raised the environmental bar. Producers on the whole are, the legislation has been effective in making producers finance the costs. This as well. Of course, there are free riders in the market, online free riders as well, that sell their products, but that do not contribute to paying for the e-waste management. And the fourth, I think, success is the fact that retailers have really played a big role in taking back e-waste from consumers. So in Europe, you can take your broken hairdryer to a shop, and the shop is supposed to take it back, and he cannot contest it. So these are, let's say, the four main strengths, and then there are six, let's say, weaknesses. The first one is that the directive has not been effective in reducing the volume of e-waste, and this is not the case. Also, consumers continue to hoard electronic waste. And I know that this has been discussed in previous episodes of your event. Also, the collection rate is a bit disappointing, or at least the methodology could be improved. And then, of course, enforcement. And I know this is also a bit of a problem in other parts of the world, but also in Europe. Legislation is not sufficiently enforced. So as long as people don't know, as long as actors don't think that the law will be enforced, then you haven't got dissuasive incentives. And so you continue to dodge the system because you know I will never face a penalty. And also the current legislation is ineffective in fostering circularity. I think this is from a high level point of view. I think the key points I wanted to convey with you. Shri Priya asked me also to identify, let's say, the challenges that remain. I would say, first of all, the recovery of critical raw materials in the European Union, and that's an issue of great concern. How are we going to make our industry less reliant on other countries in the world, and how can we become more self-sufficient? And so this has been laid down in the CRM Act earlier this year, which is going through Parliament and Council with the speed of light. But it's an issue of great concern because the critical raw materials, for those who are less familiar, they are materials such as gallium or europium or germanium, rare earth elements, and so forth. So that's challenge number one. How do we get recyclers to recover these critical raw materials? It's absolutely not easy. It's not just copper or gold or silver. It's really how do we obtain, and in the European Union, it's less than 1%, many of these materials, the recovery. Secondly, the plastics is also a challenge that remains. And as you know, there are many types of plastics in most of the electrical and electronic products. Also, products are miniaturized and so on. So it's difficult to recover pure types of plastic. And I think the third challenge that I wanted to share with you is we need to create some kind of platform where producers meet recyclers, because where demand meets supply. Because recyclers can of course produce recyclates, but producers are in search of particular type of a typical grade of quality or typical grade of depollution of plastics. And recyclers don't know that there is this demand, you see, and the challenge is so the market doesn't work properly. We need to make sure that demand can meet supply, and the only way to do this is by creating some kind of labeling to say, for example, if you're looking for 98% purity, that would be label B, for example. And then this label could communicate to the recycling industry, okay, that's the total volume that is expected. And then at least they can adjust their investments to meet that demand. And that's this remains a challenge, and it's not so easy to solve this conundrum. And that's these are the main points that I want to raise with you.
Sure, thank you, Pascal. Pascal, one of the challenges that we are seeing is with this, and especially with the new version of the rules, with the focus purely on 4 metals. What happens with plastics? And there is today a question: why should one? And this is a very practical question that I am facing today. Why should I pick up keyboards? Because if keyboards do not give me EPR credits, then let them go to wherever they are going. I don't care. And we are really struggling with this while it is very clear and understandable that there is focus on certain materials, but defocusing on other materials has very complex implications. And if I were to talk of a printer manufacturer, why should they pick up any cartridges whatsoever going forward? Or anything which has hazardous constituents, because they make no sense. There is neither ferrous nor aluminum nor copper nor gold in a whole range of products, but they have serious toxicity implications. And I think we have some good deep experts also from Delhi Pollution Control Committee and from Maharashtra Pollution Control Board to address some of these things. But that is something also which we are starting to debate, that what happens, what are the risks of taking the approach which is focused only on a few materials while forgetting everything else. So what I'd like to understand from you is in terms of recovery numbers, because some of these hazardous fractions, are there also strategies which are driving recovery of these hazardous fractions? Because in the Indian version, we have completely forgotten that part, or the focus is purely on metals and nothing else. Brominated flame retardants, which is a huge issue, or any flame retardant laden plastics. They are going in all types of streams. They are ending up in buckets and regular products that people use in their daily lives. How do we stop that? And are there specific strategies which have been really successful on that front?
Yeah, that's really unfortunate what you're saying, because in the European Union, that was the starting point, to say that certain products contain hazardous substances, and so we need to recover them. Because you want to avoid pollution of the environment, and I think that's the starting point. And that's the reason also why there is a cost involved in compliance with legislation. If there were no cost involved, then everyone would be recovering the hazardous substances, and you would not need legislation. You need legislation because that's not the case, and there are costs involved in recovery and recycling. And I mean, for example. Many fridges, all fridges contain ozone-depleting substances. So you need to have legislation that spells out that ozone-depleting substances need to be recovered, or for example, mercury in lamps and so on. And that's the starting point. And I think to answer your question, I think you need some kind of holistic approach, number one. And secondly, also, you need a stable legal framework. I heard you saying earlier that the legal framework is changing all the time. That's not conducive to creating, let's say, a good ecosystem, because people don't know what's going on. And so, and at the end of the day, it doesn't matter so much whether you zoom in on a particular type of plastic or just 1 or 25, as long as this, as long as the legal framework remains stable for a number of years at least. And then you can, and it's the same in Europe, you have recycling targets, and you reach them or you don't reach them, but they don't change all the time. And it's very clear also how to reach the target, how to comply with the standards, with the recycling target. So,
yeah. So, Pascal, I'll also like to include Priyanka from Accenture. I believe she has to leave a bit early. So Priyanka, Accenture, along with the ICEA, has done a whole study on bringing circular economy in this space. You released this report almost a couple of weeks back. So, basis whatever what Pascal has shared in the dialogue that we have had, I mean, any specific points that you would like to bring up, things that you are finding of concern, things that you are finding of deep interest in terms of how do we truly solve this issue?
I think Pascal has very clearly talked about the value chain, how the EPR has shifted the responsibility of managing electronic waste to the producers of OEM, other manufacturers. He's clearly right in his way. They have more partnership, they have more alliances, they are more in a better position to manage that electronic waste. But when it comes to recycling or extracting the required metal that you have mentioned initially, the four metals which we are talking about, basis which will get the manufacturer, the OEMs will get the EPR credit. I think we are really jumping the gun. Recycling comes second before. Are we really aware how the collection will happen of that e-waste, electronic waste? Pascal, you talked about hoarding of electronic materials at end consumers, right? We all present in this forum. We all know we might be having more than 5 or 7, either mobile phones or a laptop in our homes, right? We might not be disposing them properly. We might not be handing it over to the collection people or municipality or howsoever. How we are managing that? So the problem statement is first managing the collection. Who will be driving that? Then comes the recycling and then extracting the waste. So there are different sets of problems and we need to tackle them each one by one. Now coming to the initial challenge, the getting of EPR credits. So I think technology is at very, very, very nascent stage in India. We have advanced technology with some of the global players, but when it comes to India, Mighty has developed some indigenous technology which talks about extracting the required metals, the gold and everything from PCBs. But is it scalable? Can it be scaled? Can it be actually utilized by the OEMs to recycle the waste? The first question is that. And this is our research. We have still not been able to validate that. We have provided a proper research. If you see in the report in, second or third chapter, we have talked about the, differentiation between indigenous technology, the informal sector technology, and the advanced technology. We still feel there's a lot of gap between that. Majorly, the recycling and collection is being handled by informal sector. The 70 to 80% collection is handled by them. Only 22% of recycling is, done by the formal sector. So how are we getting to OEMs and, how we are channelizing our informal sector to help the OEMs or maybe the formal sector in managing or collecting this electronic waste? And here, as Pascal mentioned, the entire value chain, the list of stakeholders who are involved, be it the end consumer, be it the municipality, be it the OEMs or PROs. I'm aware of the fact that PROs have not been the part, but formalized recyclers, how they can be channeled. Is the government providing them with the required technology? Do they have hands-on with that? How we are bringing the global advanced technologies to India? Here, I think either OEMs or with the required incentivization, some work can be done to explore that point. But yes, open to everyone if anyone has another point of context over here.
Thank you, Priyanka. So I think one more point which has come up, and Pascal, if you would like to talk about it. I talk all the time about rep tool sort of a thing in India and why it is so critical to ensure all of us understand the constituents of what goes into e-waste. Once you have opened it, once you have dismantled it, recycled it, what are the things, where is it actually, what are the constituents and what is happening to all these range of fractions? Because it is not just these 4 or 5 metals, it's a mix of over 100 plus compounds that we are talking of. And how do you deal with it? What are the end pathways post recycling? Because while recycling can take them to a certain extent, it does not necessarily take them to an atomic level. You never reach those levels. So what do you do with these compounds which are left out and those pathways? And a rep tool sort of a system kind of brings in that visibility and data sets on, okay, this is the total set of materials that are coming out. And we may have solutions for a few, but we don't have, solutions for majority. And internally, Karo Sambhav has started using, for example, rep tool based thinking. I'm not saying the exact tool, but rep tool based thinking. And what we find is almost 60% plus materials don't really have a clean answer or a solid answer, something which is very, very responsible. So how do you start moving this needle from, less than, or 40 to 45% clean answer to, let's say, 80, 90% clean answer? And knowing the right pathways for each and every material, not just being happy with a suboptimal solution that, okay, plastic is just sold to someone. No, where, how, is it the right thing to do? What happens if it contains BFR? So those sort of questions do not really exist in the system. So do you wish to talk a bit about, because we also have a larger fraternity here, it may be good to hear a few words about the rep tool again, while we have discussed this in the past. I think it is super important in our sort of a system to bring in data accountability.
Yeah, so as I said earlier, 20 years ago, all this also had to be started up in Europe, and Rome wasn't built in a day. So, but along the way, what many of my members did was they audited the plants, for example, the people they had contracts with. So they audited to understand, okay, how is your technology? How does it actually work in practice? And are we in compliance with the law, the way you do it? Are you properly extracting the gases or whatever substances there are? And so we call this internal audits. And so that's also how you learn the business, and what is feasible, what is not feasible, what is financially unattractive as a proposition, and so forth. So that's why I say it's an ecosystem. There are different actors in that ecosystem that can, because there may be someone else, an acceptor down the line that can also accept a part of that fraction, and that also undertake some kind of recycling steps. So yeah, so it takes time to build this whole ecosystem. I don't know, does that answer your question?
You're on mute, Pranshu.
Yeah. So I think, the ambition is high. And in many cases, because, there is also pressure on materials, there is also pressure on solving the problem quite fast. I think we may be trying to leapfrog in some things, but probably that will not help. Or maybe there are certain things that we will have to very quickly evolve if we have to solve. But right now, there is a serious challenge that we are facing with the present version, because what do you do with, like I said, each and every brand is showing, why should I collect if they are putting a desktop on the market, why should I collect a keyboard? Why should I collect a mouse? So those sort of questions which should never be there in the minds, because they need to collect whatever they have put on the market. Today, those sort of questions are starting to peep up because the focus is only metals. While the strategic intent may be right, but the way it has been executed probably needs a lot more curation. And maybe it will be curated. Maybe this is just the first draft which has come, and the first version. So we are all hopeful that the intent is, because the intent seems to be very right. Hopefully things will evolve and it will solve itself. Thank you.
In Europe, PROs pay for all the costs arising from recycling, whatever that is a cost. They pay for this, so as through their fee system, and they don't say no to costs in that respect. And secondly, what I heard, I think it was Reddy who was explaining to me which materials that you zoom in on as Indian legislation. I don't think you should zoom in on metals that anyhow have a positive value, or for which the technologies are around. Legislation should focus on materials that are currently not recovered and that are costly to recover, or for which there is no value chain, or for which there's no ecosystem. That's the whole point of legislation, and then that has to be enforced, of course. But I was a bit puzzled to hear that you legislate around you need to recover gold. But yeah, of course. I mean, why wouldn't you recover gold? If you are in a position to recover gold, you will recover it. So I don't know. I don't know the specifics of your legislation, but to me that was a bit yeah.
No, thank you, Pascal. If there are any questions to Pascal from the speaker panel, I have looked at the chat. We will answer some of the questions at a later stage. They are not necessarily related to Pascal, but from any of the panel members who are there, if there is anything for Pascal, please feel free to ask. You can unmute yourself and ask.
The first question is actually for me. How recycling credits can contribute. how recycling credits can contribute to closing material loops in a sustainable manner, how to evolve better strategic solutions for a sustainable future. I must say I'm not familiar with credits,
Yeah.
and I'm very.
So I will explain this.
Okay.
Yeah, as I go ahead, I will try to answer this question. I did not ask you this because you know the recycling credit system is very specific to India and still evolving, very early stages. So even we are not understanding the complexities that are involved in that system today. So, but thank you, Pascal, and really look forward to growing work with you, to deepening collaboration. I think a lot of knowledge, learnings. Come in very handy, you know, and I think especially rep tool, especially the kind of work which has been done on Senelec standards, that is another thing which we are trying to drive. When I say we, it's a whole fraternity of people who are now starting to say that if we do not have the right standards for collection, for recycling, for recovery, you know, how do we justify the numbers? You know, can poor quality recycling lead to high quality numbers, which is what is happening in India as of now? But how do we really need to look at the quality of recycling to the type of recyclates? So thank you, Pascal.
You're welcome.
And with this, I would like to invite all other members, you know, on the next in the next part of the dialogue. So in the next part of the session, we are going to further this debate. I'd like to invite Manjri. Manjri is the India and Sub-Asia Regional Manager for Market Access for HP Enterprise. Welcome, Manjri, to the panel. I would also like to invite Karthik Krishnan, who is the Head of Strategy at MMTC-PAMP, a very close friend, trying to really solve the problem. Thank you, Karthik, for coming on board. Then I would like to invite Shri Nandkumar Gurav. He's Assistant Secretary Technical, Maharashtra Pollution Control Board. Maharashtra Pollution Control Board again has been striving very hard to solve this problem. They have been trying to take multiple initiatives. So really great to have a representative from MPCB today with us. Welcome, sir. Then I'd like to invite Dr. BMS Reddy, who is Senior Environmental Engineer with Delhi Pollution Control Committee. And I think, again, insights from Delhi would be very critical, considering there is also absence of recyclers in Delhi because of certain regulations. So we have a very healthy mix. And then we have Priyanka, if she's still there. To this dialogue. Priyanka comes from Accenture. Accenture, along with ICEA, very recently wrote a report on the electronics sector and how do we bring in circularity. So a very warm welcome to all of you. And the purpose of the panel is essentially to, again, deep dive into this new sort of EPR credit system. And while it may not be fully laid out still and it's still evolving, we can all share our early stage thinking, our views on it. How can it be improved? The results from this webinar are also sent to different government bodies. So this becomes in very handy in that from that point of view. So Manjri, I'll start with you. You know, HPE Manjri has been fairly conscious in terms of how to responsibly recycle, how to create collection systems at scale. I remember, you know, working with HP at a time when, you know, HP and HP was one organization, you know, almost 3 decades back. And it was always the very first one to start in most countries. I remember the time in Singapore, I remember the time in Vietnam, in many of the countries, it was always the first one. So considering, you know, the changes in the policy and your voluntary initiatives, what do you think should be done? You know, are these EPR policies going to support the circular initiatives that HPE today wants to drive? Will it allow you, or is it how do I say, is it going to create a positive impact, or is it going to create some challenges? So your views, please.
Thank you, Pranshu. And as you said, it has been pleasure always to work with you in different capacities in the past that we have engaged. As a responsible brand, not just HP, not forget about it. Today I'm representing HP, but purely we are all environmentalists. And we should never forget where we are coming in from. The intent of having a healthy regulation is to ensure that whatever products we are placing into the market are taken back from the market and responsibly recycled. I believe that was the intent with which the e-waste regulation was first drafted and introduced into the country. And till now, before 2022 rules, the objective was met by putting an obligation on extended producer responsibility obligations. And I loved what Pascal said. It was extended producer, but it became exclusive producer responsibility. That entire obligation was always was only on the producers. But at least in the 2016 or the prior rules, what I loved was there was at least an intent in the rule which said that the producers are responsible to ensure what you are placing into the market is collected back and then sent for responsible recycling. So the producers who are selling or putting the products into the market would know how to collect it back. The responsibility of collection was purely on the producers. And then the 2022 rules came in. And if you ask me, why should there be an evolution of rules? If you ask me, I feel that if you identify some problems in the rule, then you feel like addressing those problems. That's why there's a need of development of a new policy. And we thought there were problems in the previous policy. For example, the collection was not happening. The direct collection from consumer to the channelization of waste from consumer to the recycling channel was missed. There was a lot of free riders, as Pascal and you said in the opening section. There were a lot of gaps in the existing 2016 regulation. And we thought when there was a drafting of 2020 rules started happening, we thought there would be, these gaps would be filled in and the policy new regulation would come up, which would strengthen the old policy and build upon the learnings from the old rules. However, the 2022 rules came in altogether new avatar, I would say, because the shift happened, a drastic shift happened in 2022 rules where the extended producer responsibility obligation was taken to a higher level up, the next level. So earlier it was producer who was responsible to collect, but now the recycling obligation was also imposed on the producer, the one stakeholder who has no control on the third-party recycling infrastructure. If you look at it, now the obligations are like you need to ensure your EPR obligations are met by purchase of EPR certificates. And the EPR certificates are basically, if you see it, is material recovery, and that too purely only 4 metals right now. And in some cases is 1 metal or 2 metal or something of that sort. And as I don't want to dwell more upon it, but very critical elements or materials have been missed out. Maybe we can say that it's a starting path. India is still to the path of developing infrastructure, recycling infrastructure, and Indian CPCB will keep adding more materials into the targets. That could be the intention, and that's what we are hearing. But my question is, which has been addressed, and that's a problem. And I see in the rule also, as a responsible brand, what we till now we have been trying to do is, we have been trying to provide a channel for our consumers to return all the products that we are placing into the market. Whether it's a server, whether it's a chassis, whether it's a networking product, whether it's a power cord, or as simple as a interface card. But tomorrow, even if I provide, the rule doesn't ask me to provide that. So I may continue to do that. But if I continue to do that, I'm bearing the cost, because all these come at a cost. If I have to set up a take back mechanism, I have to invest in take back mechanism. But what happens, there are a lot of free riders in the market. So a competitor or an equal brand for me is willing or wants to take a shortcut. My cost of compliance would be quite high as compared to someone else in the market. And I'm actually losing just for being a responsible brand, for doing right things in the market. I bear additional cost and I may have a competitive disadvantage because my prices would be quite high and ultimately it's transferred to the consumers. So is this a right approach? So what we would have loved in the 2022 rules when it came out would have been that it strengthened, it built upon the strengths of the old regulation. And I believe the strength of the 2016 regulation was the collection responsibility that was put on the producers. Now, as soon as the strength has been actually the PRO system, the collection mechanism, the PRO who brought in the facility for collection to happen, channelization of waste to happen, they have completely have been removed. So whatever I invested in the last 6 years, it has all gone in there. So again, we have to start working on everything together. So I feel that is something which could have been addressed in a better way. And we have to wait and watch how this 2022 rules pan out, I believe, because it's still in a discussion phase. We are hoping, we are having a lot of discussions with the government, with CPCB and with MOEF, that we need to have a very holistic approach, futuristic approach, not exactly that we have to solve this problem today. So I'll pause here. Yeah.
Sure. Thank you, Manjri. Let me bring in Shri Gurav. Gurav, are you able to now unmute yourself? Is it working for you?
Thank you very much, first of all, to Karo, Sambhav and all the teams for inviting us to share our views, especially with respect to the role played by the Maharashtra Pollution Control Board for implementation of the e-waste management rules 2016. Actually, what happens, we are having experience that our role as per the rule that we have to monitor the and compliance of the extended production responsibility as directed by the CPCB as per the schedule 5th of the e-waste management rule 2016. But there are challenges. Now, Central Pollution Control Board has come out with the central portal regarding the registration of producers and manufacturers. Right now, it is started. So I will share you experience with respect to the plastic, because actually Central Pollution Control Board has had developed 1.5 years back that the plastic waste EPR registrations, and it is very good. Because of that EPR registrations, all the stakeholders are on board. Not only on board, but that the EPR target has been given to all the stakeholders, including producers, importers, and manufacturers also. And because of that only, and the recyclers are also in Robin. So whatever the certificate is being issued by the recyclers with respect to the plastic, it is tagged with the GST. So there will not be any fake certification regarding the compliance of the EPR. So this is one of the great move done by the CPCB. On similar lines, CPCB is working with the e-waste also. At present, they have developed, it is open only for producer and recyclers. Manufacturing refurbishers will be open shortly. Another important point is that Maharashtra Pollution Control Board are having very limited manpower. So it is very difficult to monitor. So we have decided to have a randomized inspections of the e-waste entrepreneurs, whether they are following or not. Third important aspect that Maharashtra Pollution Control Board had carried out the inventory with the help of IRG system, inventory of the plastic waste e-waste generation in the state of Maharashtra. As per that inventory in Maharashtra 2023, if you go the amount of e-waste generated is 15 million. So it is very difficult. So another important point is the informal, how to channelize the informal sector into the formal sector. That is also one of the major challenges.
Just this 50 million is in tons or kilograms? I mean, or units? What is the unit?
By weight.
So 50 million kilograms or 50 million tons?
No, 1.5 million. Sorry, 1.5 million.
1.5 million. Okay.
Sorry, 1.5 million tons metric ton. Okay.
Sure, sir.
So this is actually inventory. Inventory is also available on our website. That we have done inventory with respect to the all components and on the guidelines given by the Central Pollution Control Board. So you can go through our inventory, you can find out whether the inventory is proper or not. If you have any suggestions, then it is always welcome. Another important is the producers. Basically, till now it is very difficult to verify e-waste generated by the producers and e-waste sent to the recycle and refurbishments because it is not online. Just they are giving the certifications, so it is very difficult for us. So we have to depend on the annual report submitted by them. So annual report is nothing but a statistical they have given through online. Once it is as on the similar of plastic, if it is tagged with GST certification, then we will get the actually auto generated what we call as EPR compliances.
Quarterly report.
And now as per the new rules, they have to submit the quarterly report. Quarterly report to the State Pollution Control Board. Another important aspect is why e-waste is not being properly channelized. From our annual report, it seems that considering the quantity of e-waste generation, only 10% is being recycled through authorized recyclers.
Yeah.
So there is a huge gap of 90%. So where it is going, that is one of the important. The challenge is especially what happened, the producers. There might be some producers are available on the line. I'm not criticizing any producers, but they are not coming up with the concrete policies or concrete proposals unless because what happened in every field, economics is most important. Unless and until economics is not being maintained or not being given proper attention, it will not be work out. What happened, for example, if my mobile phone or my TV at home is I have to discard it. So there is no doorstep available for the collect back of this system. So actually producers have to develop the collection system. The collection mechanism is most important aspect as far as e-waste management is concerned. This is my personal opinion.
Yeah, Gurav sir, I would really like to encourage you to pass this view to the government at the center, because one of the critical things which was starting to work was focus on collection.
Yes.
And all focus on collection has now been taken away. So the only focus is selling of credits. So many producers today view their job is just to go at the end of the month or the site,
And
pay
collect,
money, get the
correct, and collect the
certificates.
certificates.
So,
Yes.
yeah, so which doesn't solve the problem.
Yes,
Because
yes,
the
sir, yes, sir.
access, it's an access issue. And
Yes.
producers, because of their very wide distribution systems,
Absolutely.
had a great possibility to create collection.
Because they are having dealers, sub dealers, they are having outlets. So they have to make the
Sure, sir.
arrangements at the outlets to collect back the material, whatever the e-waste material at the end of life or whatever the consumers he want to dispose of. So this is my suggestion from you that we have to come together in order to develop the collection mechanism. How we can develop the collection mechanism, whether there is any policy intervention is required, whether there is any what we call a special purpose vehicle is to be prepared by the government organizations, just like Kerala Clean
Sure.
Kerala company is there, especially for plastic waste
Yeah, very
management.
true.
They have done. So you have to come out with some recommendations for the government also, for especially for e-waste management. I'm saying e-waste management. Okay. Thank you from my end.
Gurav sir. Yeah, no, thank you, sir. Just to reiterate, and as I said, we do this series of webinars. This is the 12th episode today. And whether it is from Jammu and Kashmir or from Goa, representatives, whether it is member secretary or chairman pollution control boards or, other officials from the pollution control board who have participated, one thing which I consistently hear is this nudge towards driving collection systems.
Absolutely.
Because that is something, because at the end of the day, what is the purpose of the rule? It is to create ease of participation for individual citizens, people like
Correct.
me and you, and how we can only participate if there is a system which is rolled out. Now that the rules don't talk about it, companies who would like to do it are at a disadvantage, like Manjri said, of a cost, because they have spent and their competition or their competitor is not spending at all. So,
Absolutely.
whilst this is being very highly emphasized, by all state pollution control boards, there is a complete lack of, how do I say, even recognition that collection systems do have a role to play at a center. So what we are hearing, and I'm very open in this dialogue, what we are hearing is a very different view. State think collection is super critical. Central Pollution Control Board thinks we don't need to focus at all on collection. So our Ministry of Environment is not at all emphasizing on collection system. So which is kind of sending sort of very mixed signals in the market. And what I know at a grassroots level is a lot of good work which was initiated in the last 5 years is starting to disappear, because why should one do it if policy doesn't mandate us to do it? So, but thank you, sir, for your very kind views.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
Yeah. So I'd like to bring in Karthik from PAMP. So Karthik represents MMTC-PAMP, which is a joint collaboration between the Indian government and PAMP of Switzerland. So Karthik, over to you. And
Sure.
Karthik, what we would like to hear from you is about the recycling. On the recycling front,
Sure.
why innovate in this space? Is it really necessary, for an organization which is a refinery of precious metals, why touch e-waste? So, would love to hear from you.
Sure. Thanks a lot, Pranshu and Sri Priya, for having us on this webinar. So essentially, the question is very relevant, Pranshu. As a refinery brand, why, or a refinery as a bullion brand, why into recycling? The answer actually is very simple. MMTC-PAMP, essentially, as we all know, is a joint venture, as Pranshu said, between MMTC and Swiss bullion company called MKS-PAMP. And this is the only company in India, or only gold refinery in India, which actually has LBMA accreditation for gold. And we have been into the bullion business as well as minting coins business for really long, I think since 2011. But having said that, MMTC-PAMP has always been on the forefront, to develop the ecosystem for precious metals per se, gold, silver. And in doing so, we realized that it's not only about refining from the mines, it's also about recycled gold and recycling from the secondary sources, which is very critical. And India being a huge market for that. So it was a strategic move to actually invest in a facility which can process feeds containing low grades or low grade feed containing very little volume of precious metals as well. These feeds could be industrial slag, industrial sludges. It could be e-waste. It could be refinery waste. Essentially, this attempt was to further our expansion and further our offering from just being a bullion coin brand to a precious metal recycling brand as well. So that was how our evolution or our existence into this particular business came into. And e-waste, of course, is a logical feed source for us that is available in India. And also it is critical to kind of process e-waste, considering resource efficiency. So that's how we came into the picture.
Yeah, and Karthik, with the present regime, I mean, you will also need to be regulated. You will also need to, showcase all the details of how this happens. You will have to go and register on the EPR portal. So how is it all working for you? Is it something which you believe is going to create a very positive ecosystem to drive this? And are there any suggestions that you have to make it even better?
As far as ecosystem is concerned, Pranshu, there is definitely a need for development of the ecosystem per se for brands like us. One thing is when you talk about registering on the portals, now companies like MMTC-PAMP, which have traditionally been a refining company, or which have not been into the EPR space or e-waste space per se, are extreme for them. All this is extremely new. When that happens, it becomes really difficult because internally the companies would not really have the capability to, let's say, understand things or kind of understand or have the awareness of what exactly is needed in terms of regulations, in terms of the challenge. There are challenges because we are not aware of every little regulation that we need to follow, and hence it does take time for us. That is the reason why for us also proper collaboration and participation or having forums to actually address these things are extremely critical. That is one thing. Other than just the regulation part, which is of course important, because if there is a plan to do something, they will have regulations are automatically a part of it, and we really understand it, and that is how any system can actually be built. So we do welcome the regulations. Only thing is, we would actually prefer if there is more awareness that is also given to companies to facilitate what we can kind of do, and what we need to do. That is one thing. And secondly, in terms of ecosystem also, it is very important for companies like us, which are again not in the e-waste space directly, or have not been in the space for long, to understand, or to also have channels and forums to share with other people, to understand. To price discovery, for example, is a very critical question that we have. If it is, because the competition still continues to be informal sector, and Manjri very well put across this point, saying that while there is a compliance cost that the producers have to bear, there is also equally prohibitive compliance costs that the recyclers also have to bear. And competing with the informal sector, which practically doesn't have, or it doesn't have as much cost, it doesn't have as much overheads for the same set of material in terms of PCBs, in terms of source feed. Of course, it's a huge challenge. And how is this being addressed, or how is it going to be evolved as the industry becomes more and more formalized, is something that is an interesting question, and also really a question at this point in time. And
Sure.
if this can be facilitated, I'm sure these are something that we want, and we would expect things would happen in future.
Sure. Thank you, Karthik. And the point of informal recycling, the way it is done today, while the costs are not internalized, they're all externalized in terms of poor health of all the citizens,
Exactly.
the kind of pollution that it leads to. And we have Shri Dr. Reddy from Delhi Pollution Control Committee, a city which has long suffered from the ill impacts of informal recycling. There are two or three very large hubs of informal recycling, and there have been extensive reports by some of the organizations like Toxics Link on the challenges that these hubs, informal recycling hubs, create for the citizens, and the deep impact on the health of people. So I'd like to invite Dr. Reddy. Dr. Reddy, if you could please come in and share your views on how do you think EPR is being utilized to solve the problem in Delhi at a scale, and how it is going to work. That will be very helpful. Over to you, sir.
Good evening. Good evening. Thank you, Karo Sambhav, for inviting me to participate in this webinar. I hope I am audible. Am I audible?
Yes, sir. You are fully audible.
Okay. See, since looking at the processes involved in recycling of e-waste, the activity process is figuring in the list of negative or prohibited listed activities of Delhi Master Plan 2021, which states that the electrothermal processes is one of the prohibited category in Delhi. That's why the recycling activities are not being allowed in Delhi as of now. But I think CPCB is in the process of I think segregating 2 to 3 types of recycling processes, where if the prohibited activity is not involved in that process, I think DPCC will be in a position to issue authorization or consent for recycling that recycling activity. As of now, there are no recycling activity. As far as the question of illegal, unauthorized entities in Delhi is concerned, it's a major problem where the significant number of people are operating in Trans-Yamuna area. a lot of efforts have been made and number of drives have been also conducted along with the MCD, Delhi Police and Revenue Department. And though we have sealed a number of illegal entities, the people are in a habit of coming back and restarting their operations in some other place. But however, with respect to the pollution being caused by these people, the processes involved or undertaken by these people as of now at present is environmental friendly, looking at the processes which they used to conduct by burning the electric wires and burning the, dipping the PCBs in the acid by adapting the crude methods where the water contamination and groundwater contamination is happening. These processes are nowadays being done away with, and people are there just manually dismantling or segregating, and the segregated waste is being handed over to the other people, recyclers, you say, which are located in other states, especially the adjoining states of Delhi.
Sir, thank you for your kind comments. I think it would also be nice to hear, because Delhi is such a large city and there is a clear absence because of certain regulations. One cannot put a red category industry of this variety. So how should, what are your plans in terms of making sure that waste eventually gets, moved in the right direction? How do we involve citizens? There have also been some dialogues around setup of eco parks at a state level. So how can all of this work, sir?
Though the concept of eco park has cropped up with the intervention of the central government, but the pace at which it is moving is very slow. I think once this eco park is commissioned in Delhi, I think most of the informal sector guys can be shifted over there.
Sure.
Force or with some incentives, without which I think I don't think these people can be forced to move to the eco park. That is one aspect. I think Delhi will be the first state in India which has adapted this concept of eco park. I think which is moving in a right direction, and the land of 20 acres has been already been identified, and change of land use has already been done, and consultant has already been engaged and shortlisted, who will be preparing a detailed project report, and consultant will be coming out with the modalities, the financing model, and operational, and how do you give the subsidies to the people who are at present in the informal sector, so that all these segregators, dismantlers, recyclers, refurbishers, all the ecosystem people will be located in the said eco park, so that the entire segregated waste in terms of metal, non-metals, ferrous, non-ferrous metals, glass, plastics, everything is recycled in a set eco park, and the byproduct or product is sent to the end use consumers. And as of now, I think the DPCC is carrying out random inspections of the people who have been issued EPR authorization by the CPCB, and we are
Sure, sir.
we used to carry out inspections and check the compliance status with respect to the guidelines framed by the CPCB, specifically with respect to the refurbisher and dismantler. I think dismantler, I think they have done away in the new rules 2022. Apart from this, the concept of bulk consumer, the definition has been done away, and they don't have any responsibility to submit any annual return to the State Pollution Control Board. As the officer of Maharashtra State Pollution Control Board said, each of the state boards in India has scarce human resources, which is hampering the task of implementing the rules, especially the e-waste management rules, in a proper or compliant manner.
Sure. I'd like to bring in Dr. Gurav also now in the, is Dr. Gurav there? Yeah, I see him. Yeah, so Dr. Gurav, how are you? I mean, again, because these are two large, both Maharashtra as well as Delhi are very large generators of electronic waste. I mean, this is still a issue of, wherever the purchasing power parity is higher, that's where we find more. And this is also going to proliferate into more, very similar patterns are starting to appear on the batteries side. The adoption of electric vehicles again with rich states and cities both like Delhi and Maharashtra. We will see increasingly similar patterns of this sort of waste. Uh, so while Eco Park, again, there has been a lot of dialogue, and Dr. Reddy mentioned about it that it's going slow. Are you also at a state level, Gaurav sir, looking at something of this variety, or promoting even small scale but good recycling solutions?
Yes, yes.
Because sometimes it may not be necessary to have a very large recycling unit. Sometimes a good small recycling unit at a city level can also solve problems. So, we have in many
Yes,
cases
yes.
overlooked these simple solutions. But are you also, sir, looking at those sort of solutions?
Yes, actually, what happened? Our industry department has come out with the policy to have a 4 recycling zone in the state of Maharashtra. So it will be helpful
Okay.
to entrepreneurs. One park will be at Ratnagiri area, one park will be at Pune area, one will be at Aurangabad, and one will be at Nagpur. It is in draft stage, but we are coming out with the policy to have a separate recycling zone where small scale units can be established, and for that purpose some incentives or some what we called as financial assistance will be provided by the government authorities. The component has not yet decided, the policy in draft stage, but we are in process of to promote the small entrepreneurs for recycling and having a separate earmark area for the recycling purposes, though it may be e-waste, though it may be plastic waste, though it may be battery.
Okay. Yeah, no, this is, and sir, you mentioned Ratnagiri, Aurangabad, Nagpur, and the fourth one?
Nagpur and Pune, but these
Pune.
are the only probable. It is not fixed. It is the primary. You don't quote
Okay,
anywhere
sir.
because it is not
Sure.
fixed where that recycling park is will be will be established.
Yeah, and Gaurav sir and Dr. Reddy sir, I think this is a very, very encouraging development because we have also seen a very similar development in the state of Rajasthan. So Eco Park is being developed very near to Jaipur. They are actually auctioning the land now in the next couple of weeks. So these are some very, very positive developments because with these, let me call them islands of recycling and, spaces for promoting circular economy. I think maybe we have a great answer down the line. And this can also then help up clean up EPR systems, which have traditionally been infected by the idea of duplicate work or, paperwork where recycling hasn't been done, but, it has been claimed that recycling has been done. So really, really looking forward to, and uh, both to Gaurav sir as well as Dr. Reddy, we would be very, very interested in having detailed dialogue if anything is required from our side in terms of knowledge partnership or bringing some global players from a knowledge sharing platform point of view. We are very, very happy to support, sir, in all capacities.
Actually, we are having different what we call as discussions with the Material Recycling Association of India.
Okay, yeah, MRAI.
They are part of our what we called as while preparing our policy. They are our part.
Okay. Great to hear, sir. Because there are institutions like, for example, WEEE Forum. Pascal was here, and there are many such global institutions who have over 2 decades of working knowledge on both in emerging markets as well as mature markets on in terms of what has happened, what has worked. So we are very, very willing to work collaboratively with you on this. Then going back to Karthik. Karthik, as as this scenario changes, as more and more focus on recycling evolves, how do you think, solutions like yours do you think they will gain a lot more prominence? They will start to proliferate significantly, Would you be interested in, getting into some of these eco parks at some point in time? Or do you see your sort of companies would be interested in something like an eco park, because that will essentially create a very strong industrial ecology based sort of a system at a grassroots level? Karthik? Okay, I'm unsure if he's able to hear us. Sripriya, you may want to reach out to him. Okay, let me take some questions which have come. We have so so there is someone has asked this question. What is the role of PROs going forward? While PROs created an important aspect in terms of driving collection systems and setting up collection systems, but with the present rules, there is no dialogue on the collection systems and the role of PROs. So Dr. Reddy, Dr. Gurav, any suggestions that you have? What is your view from a PRO point of view? Should these entities continue to exist? Should they be bought back from a pure collection point of view? Because it is very difficult for a regional recycler to go and create selective systems which allow people to participate, which provide ease of participation, which creates a whole IT-based backbone system to drive collection. So any views, sir, from your side on that front?
Though the nomenclature of PRO has been done away with, I think, but you have a significant role still to play, especially in channelizing this waste to the proper recyclers. I think you can be a bridge between the producer and the recycler. Though the concept of PRO has been excluded in the present rules. But still, I think the state board, the CPCB or the Ministry of Environment can always be convinced to bring back the PRO. But till then, I think I don't think your role has been removed formally, but informally, I think you can still make an impact by being a bridge between
Sir, one of the
recyclers.
Yeah, and in multiple debates, even CPCB and Ministry of Environment has pointed out that PROs have a definite role still to play, but there is no authorization required for a PRO. Now, the challenge at a state level when PROs are operating, and I'm listening to multiple PROs who have stated this, what we are hearing is that when they are going and approaching, let's say, a bulk consumer for collection, the bulk consumer saying, can I see your authorization from some government body? And because this authorization doesn't exist, because the system doesn't require it, majority of the people are unwilling to give away their waste to a PRO, even if the area is rural and there is no other access to any other recycler. So how should, again, Dr. Reddy as well as Shri Gaurav ji, are there any suggestions that how should PROs play, because they really don't have an authorization anymore? But for bulk consumers, for many of these formal entities, they always look for a formal registration under these systems. So how can one address this? Dr. Reddy, any suggestions from your side? Because this has come up multiple times in Delhi that the bulk consumers are specifically asking that show us your registration or some sort of a, how do I say, acceptance from State Pollution Control Board that this entity can actually collect. But there is no formal registry anymore.
I think you might have also during the stakeholder meeting, I think you might have also discussed this issue with the MOF. I hope so. But
Okay.
I don't know. At the end, I think they have removed the concept of PRO. I think.
Sure. Okay, sir. Karthik, there was a question, which came up, or we were wanting to have your views. So there is a larger dialogue on eco parks. which is happening at almost all states are starting to think around setting of eco parks. Do you think formal players would place, even including yourself, would like to take spaces in these eco parks, which will allow industrial ecology sort of systems to prosper?
Yeah, I think it would actually be a good way for even if formal players to establish themselves. One, it of course kind of gives them proximity to feed. It also helps them, with the other allied infrastructure. It helps in overall compliance because setting up something separately is going to be very, very difficult for people. So I think these eco parks would definitely help. In fact, it helps in overall in developing the overall ecosystem that I keep harping about. It definitely kind of incentivizes also the formal guys to be present in places where they have access to feed, access to infrastructure, access to the market.
Sure. Thank you, Karthik. So if there are any questions from the audience, please feel free to write them in the chat box. We have still a few minutes in which we can ask these questions from the panelists. Yeah, so this is a question, sir, and I think this is for state pollution control boards. So dismantlers, while their role is kind of absent in the new rules, dismantlers do have a very, very strong role because manual dismantling allows much pure quantities to be generated, whether it is metals, plastics. So at a state level, can something be done to promote dismantling? And especially if eco parks are being established where dismantling could be regulated very well, then do we see a possibility of bringing back dismantlers in this space?
Actually, as per the new rules. Okay. Dr. Reddy sir, please go ahead. Dr. Reddy sir, please go ahead.
Obtain authorization. Yeah, the CPCB even during the recent meetings with the CPCB, it was opened that any type of the process where the reduction of waste is there, that can always be defined as a recycling process. I think dismantling process also is one of the recycling process where they can be asked to obtain authorization under for recycling under recycling head under US Management Rules 2022. It may not be getting under dismantling head, but they can be issued. But I think the guidelines have to be framed by the CPCB and notified before every state board will take a call on that accordingly.
Sure, sir. Gaurav sir, any suggestions from your point? You were also making a point here.
I agree with the Dr. Reddy's opinion because CPCB is in the process of reviewing the guidelines in this regard.
Okay. So because I think even in the state of Maharashtra, there is a range of dismantlers which were present earlier. So how do they go around their businesses? Because what happens to them, that is also fairly unclear at this point in time. So thank you, sir. So there seem to be no other questions at this point in time. If there is anything else that any of the panelists, Dr. Reddy, Shri Nandkumar ji, Karthik, if you want to bring up, please, we still have a few minutes. If there is something critical that you believe will help the audience understand the subject matter better, please feel free to share, sir.
Actually, what happened, there should be some buyback policy or buyback, what we called as, unless and until incentive is not there from the point of producer point of view, it will not be workable. So incentive is required. Basically, I don't think any brand owner is giving any incentives right now. Neither they are declaring nor they are giving, unless and until incentives are not there to take back policy. It is very difficult to collect back the whatever the e-waste. Incentive policy.
This is absolutely true. Yeah. And again, if we look at the costs of EPR credits, they are so low at this point in time that one can hardly recycle, forget collection. I mean, I don't know how magically so much waste gets collected in India at this point in time. As per our data sets, almost as per CPCB's declarations, 3 lakhs, over 3.7 lakh tons of e-waste was collected last year. That is what recyclers declared. But this is without any incentives because the price that they are charging from brands is very, very low. Something in the mid 20s, 30s on a per kilogram basis. So how do, for example, phones get collected, at such low prices? I mean, it's still a mystical question. We don't know these answers, but hopefully the platform and the visibility and the transparency which the government is now bringing into the system, that will really help improve these matrices. And we hope that, some sort of incentive does come for individuals, because otherwise participation at an individual level will always be skewed. So thank you. Then there is one more question which has come up. This is on the upcycling front. Can upcycling be given recognition in the e-waste sort of regime? Is there a possibility to do that? I can take a pot shot at this. While, I don't know what is meant by upcycling. What do you mean by upcycling here? But refurbishment has already been very strongly advocated in a positive way in the new version of the rules. So if someone is refurbishing, their equivalent amount of target can be reduced. So that has already been recognized. Upcycling in the traditional sense, where you convert some e-waste to a decorative pot, I personally am not in favor, because scientifically those things don't really make sense. Scientifically, it makes sense to recover the materials instead of converting this product into some other thing. But Karthik, any view on this, or Dr. Reddy or Guravji, any view on upcycling?
I think same logic, Pranshu. I also believe that upcycling, if it refers to refurbishment, is definitely a good move towards circularity, because obviously refurbishment per se is a much less energy intensive option compared to even recycling or any other forms per se. So in that sense, definitely it should be encouraged. I think that'd be my opinion as well.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, Karthik. So with this, I think we have reached the end of our session today. I would, sincerely like to thank Dr. Reddy, Shri Guravji, Karthik, yourself, all other panelists who were there or not there, and most importantly, the audience for patiently listening, sharing your viewpoints, asking questions. As I said, this is a series of 8 webinars on different aspects of e-waste management. And we will continue to do them every month. We do this. I'd like to again also thank our principal sponsors, Dell, Apple, Canon, and HPE. And most importantly, to Ministry of Environment and Forest, which has covered this program under the LIFE umbrella now. So this becomes an important knowledge session, which can always be retrieved. We put all our webinars on the YouTube channel. We are also developing the proceedings of all these, which are available for people. So really thank you. Deep thanks to all of you for participating. And we look forward to collaborating with you in multiple ways as we move forward. Thank you. Thank you so much.